Introduction. Transformation. Through the eyes of Professor Zafer Toprak, Turkey, 1927. As of March, Resimli I magazine would begin to publish the survey results. Headline in the March 1927 issue was, "Turkish youth do not know what they want, what they read, what they worship." Mind of the Turkish youth was in chaos. Turkish youth did not have a common ideal, nor purpose. Of the 350 interviewed, 40 responded as they did not believe in anything. For them, there was neither God nor a prophet, nor was the Quran a holy book. 100 believed in a God, but it was not the one their teachers were portraying. Some described the prophet as a mentor, a genius, a great man of his time. These young people did not attach importance to religious upbringing and did not believe in the necessity of religion for society. The remaining 210 were faithful. Meaning? Of the 350 students, 40 were atheists, 100 deists, and 210 faithful. About a third of the future bureaucrats to rule Muslims of Turkey were non-Muslim Turks. In the age of transition from spiritual to temporal, the other part, the faithful, were intimidated and brushed aside from executive posts of the new state. Temporal was the victor over the spiritual. The Turk, in the millennial sleep for the next world, was to wake up to this world like Weber's Protestant. But the country did not have the infrastructure for such an awakening. Infrastructure of the new materialist lifestyle was to come by the economic revolutions of two pious presidents, Özal and Erdogan. Evolution of Desjarme from the sword of Islam into the sword of materialism. Let us give a cross-section of the Tanzimat mentality with the materialist medical students of 1845, and later during the reign of Sultan Abdul Hamid II. In 1845, Macfarlane was horrified to see the materialistic spirit inculcated by French teachers and students of the College of Military Surgeons. Zafer Toprak, in his book, New Life in Turkey, 1908 through 1928, says the following about the educated youth of the late Ottoman and early Republican period. The old beliefs in their minds were shaken, but not completely destroyed. New ones did not replace those destroyed. The Turkish youth was restless and undecided between the old and the new. A century later, Professor Errol Goka was saying, "Let's admit it, especially in our big cities, we are floundering in a brutal era that we neither live our traditional lives anymore, nor become modern." Let us borrow some more lines from Professor Toprak's precious work. World War I put many old values on question. It was widely believed that the values that had been considered sacred until then, and that governed a society, were suddenly meaningless. The old values were lost. The essence of life was decimated, and they were all destroyed one by one like lifeless dreams. The youth was now waiting for a new life he was not prepared for. It was restless, suspicious, and uncertain. New values were needed for the new life. It was inevitable to destroy old institutions and bring new values to life. Under these conditions, the post-war youth movement came to the fore. The youth began considering the old society's social, economic, religious, familial, and moral values as bankrupt. Now, the old religious norms, moral values, and the family institution had lost the influence that could hold the youth under discipline. The collapse caused by the World War blew up the values of the social institutions of the old generation, such as morality, family, and religion. The youth was for living the day. Sevenly I magazine wrote, "What does today's youth want and believe in? It wants everything and believes in nothing. Neither God, religion, nor morality satisfies today's youth. In the eyes of today's youth, Ford is the greatest man in the world, and the greatest strength is money. The most read books are adventure novels. The youth who turned their faces to the future, was in a general revolt against all old institutions and norms. It disliked the social and economic order, did not believe in religious and moral principles, and regarded old lofty aims and ideals as ridiculous mythifications. In short, a great revolution was observed in world youth. The majority of the youth, whose minds were kneaded by science and philosophy, denied the sanctity of religion. The young people no longer liked their elders' world and saw it as their right to reform everything. The most important point in people's behavior was their approach to morals. They no longer needed such support to strengthen their character. With a clearer description, the religious upbringing, the style based on spiritual values, which had been given up until that time, had failed in guiding the behavior of the youth to a secure course. For young people, Henry Ford was now the idol. The real values were those which served hedonism. The greatest revolt of the new generation was against sexual morality. Sexual activities were the most natural relations, and it was against the laws of nature to suppress such relations. The young generation, boys and girls, now rejected the sexual morality of their elders. As also understood from the survey, the youth believed only in positive sciences, that is, only in material things, railways, automobiles, cinema, welfare, and peace, and the need for a good life inspired the post-war youth into an extremely materialistic lifestyle. The contemporary world of the 20s no longer valued spiritual and psychical things. For the youth, the idea was not to live a spiritual and inner life, but to reach the highest level of material peace and welfare. The most sacred thing for youth was money. To become a great man, one had to accumulate a lot of money. Considering the values of the Muslim Anatolian peasants closed to the world in Istanbul then, the statistics given by the Resimli Eye magazine of the radically materialist students of 1927 show the grave schism between the early Republican ruling elite and the faithful ruled by them. The schism of Ottoman times was indeed continuing. Yet, this time religious divide was at the forefront. Remembering the epidemic of materialism among medical students during Tanzimat, 1927 survey shows the epidemic continued with acceleration in the educational philosophy of the early republic. The most important feature of the Ottoman and Republican Dežurme bureaucracy, as we will frequently emphasize in this book, is that it is disconnected from the values of the people it governs. As stated in this survey, we can clearly see one of the most important indicators of alienation and schism in our educational philosophy dating back centuries.